responsibilities as being on the board is to make a first Saturday introduction. So when I saw his name, I said, I'll do it. And it's not that I've even met Kyle. I think maybe once out at the farm, but I shop there all the time. And so if you've never been, it's an absolute must do. It's totally COVID safe. You drive north on 17 to Scotts Hill Road, drive down the road until you see the sign on the left for a 55-acre farm where they grow and raise all organic produce and provide pasture-raised meats and eggs. There's a lovely little stand that you drive up to. If there's anybody else there, you wear your mask and wait for them to finish. And you collect your groceries and you drive home. It's just a great trip out to the country. So to just fill you in a little bit on Kyle, he graduated from NC State in 2010 with a horticultural science degree. And he and his wife tried out a farm in Burlington, North Carolina, and discovered how much they loved the work and being able to raise and grow plants and support themselves and their families. So we are so fortunate, and I am so glad that he's just up the road. So here's Kyle. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. I haven't had many introductions, so that was the best one. But yeah, it was kind of odd to hear Paige say that she's such a fan, but we only met like maybe once. But that's kind of the world that we're living in right now. So to give everybody a background, I'm going to do this for now, and then I'll turn around and show you where I'm at. As Paige said, I worked, my wife and I, we lived and worked in Burlington for 2 years. And we got, in college, they don't tell you that you can be a farmer. They kind of, at NC State, they kind of do, but it's only a certain kind of a farmer. It's a big ag, monocrop, multi-acreage, confinement animal houses, the classic modern American farm. That's the only kind of farming they tell you can do. And so then when I got the taste for seeing, like just taking a little seed and growing it, tending it all the way through its life cycles, or a baby animal, tending it all the way through its life cycles, bringing it to a mature stage, harvesting it, and then going and interacting with the people. That was like one of my favorite parts of doing this, is the people aspect, and getting to see people on a weekly basis, and, presenting what I had for sale on a table that I worked so hard for, and them being excited. It was just this great mutual relationship of appreciation. And that is really what enticed me into the farming thing. And so I thought it was going to be a couple year or a 1 year stint of just like, let's do this before we start our real life. Turns out it became our real life. And so we moved out here I started the farm in 2013. We moved out here probably the 6 months after February. So what that would be August, September in 2013. And we've lived here ever since. We live in a mobile home that we rent, or we own the mobile home, but we rent the land. We rent all this acreage out here. And yeah, we're primarily focused on pastured meats, eggs, and produce. And it's taken us a while to figure out what it is exactly that we want to grow. Diverse farming like we do, there's not like a single formula for how to make it work best. It varies based on the personality of the farmer, what kinds of crops in what composition make the most sense to grow on your farm. And so for us, we started trying to do only vegetables. And then I kind of realized there were some limitations there. And then we started trying to do meats. And then I was trying to do only meats because I figured I could do it with less labor. But then there were also limitations there. And I also could not grow vegetables. I tried not growing vegetables for a year, and it was crazy. I had this itch. I was like, I got to grow something green. And so I got back into vegetables, and over the years, it's turned into what I find is a pretty balanced mixture, and it's about 2 acres of market garden space. We have about an 8-acre pig pasture, a 12-acre poultry pasture, and the poultry includes meat chickens and egg-laying chickens. And I'm going to bring you guys out there and we can see what it looks like. And that's the beauty of these virtual things. Right now, just to give you this little view, right now I'm in my market garden standing right outside. Hear a noise that's not good, but so as you can see right here, I've got this block right here. My garden's built up. There's 2 sections to my garden. This garden section is built up of 4 blocks. So we got a block here, got a block back there, a block back there, and a block right here. Each block is 50 feet wide, or 50 feet long, I should say, and about, I'm going to say it's about 100 feet wide. So there's these 30-inch beds that we have, and these 30-inch beds, there's 25 beds per block, and there's also pathways in between the beds as well. Over here we've got little baby carrots that have been germinating nicely and getting to a decent size where I can actually cultivate them. We got some spinach, which is looking primo, and all kinds of other things, little baby greens, got some sugar snap peas, some lettuce. Back here we've got a block that we have not brought into production yet. So we've just been cleaning it out, getting the weeds removed. And, you know, I'm going to periodically try to tie in why, or how the Riverwatch, like how we're, sorry, I'm really distracted because there's a loud noise that's coming from one of my irrigation pipes, which is never a good sign. Here we go. And we're fixed. So yeah, weed control here is one of the big things that, you know, is always on every gardener or farmer's mind. And in a traditional sense, weed control is done with chemicals. And I'm going to say traditional, I'm going to say modern traditional. Like true traditional is chemical free, but modern traditional, we have, you know, you have the ability to buy this jug full of stuff and you spray it on your ground and all the weeds die. Well, as you know, that's, you know, Roundup, glyphosate is the active ingredient there. It permeates into the groundwater, flows into the rivers, and causes all kinds of problems. So we got to do it by hand. So we spent a long time over there in that plot, undercutting the weeds, shaking out all the dirt, removing them by hand. But it's a really effective way to do it. It's a little more labor intensive, but it does get the majority of the weeds out of there, and then we just stay on top of weed suppression with cultivation. And so things aren't always super easy, but a lot better. And if anybody has any questions as I'm going along, feel free to interrupt me. And you know, I like questions. So moving on to this next section, I'm just going to do a little quick farm tour, and then I'm going to give you one helpful, one little tidbit at the end here. So right here behind me, we have this new crop of blueberry bushes. And I say new crop, it looks like it's been here for years. The truth is it's been somewhere else for years. And we just transplanted all of these trees. It was the farm, I don't know if anybody is familiar with the Carol Sue Blueberry Farm up in Hampstead. They're a U-pick blueberry operation, and they have another farm as well, but this is their U-pick spot. Well, the state forced them to sell so they can put a bypass through their farm. And so Jeff, the owner, called me and said, Kyle, you know, these blueberries are here. You can just come get them. I said, all right. So I rented a skid steer and a tree spade, and we dug all these holes. There's about 350 holes total. And we dug up each one of these plants, put them on a trailer, and brought them here. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see, but they're, I don't know, the buds are breaking. They're very healthy, and they are doing very well. So that means that I'm going to get a bunch of blueberries this year, the first year after planting blueberry plants. And part of the reason is because I grabbed so much of the soil that was there in the first place. Because I rented this machine that was able to capture the majority of the roots. I was able just to plop it in place. So if I hadn't had that machine, that would not be possible for sure. So that's exciting. That's a new thing. And then this next section of our market garden is right here behind, or right here in front of me. And I'm going to turn around so we can walk there together. And essentially it's this spot. And since I don't do as much over here, I use a mulch, a plastic mulch, to make these beds. These are strawberries right here. So we're gonna have a lot of strawberries this season. And the weed pressure over here is much different than the weed pressure over there. And the main reason is because the soil is so much different. The soil over here is much heavier. It's got many more finer particles in it, which means that it binds nutrients and water a lot more heavily than the sandy soil over there. This soil is still sandy, but it does have a greater constituency of clay in it. So I've got more here we just planted. We've got onions, garlic, more onions. We have broccoli, these about 6 beds of broccoli. We've got kohlrabi and little mini romaine lettuces, and we have a little bit of open space. And we have another little section over here that we're going to be doing watermelons and cantaloupes and some other summer crops. And then when these strawberries are done, we'll be pulling this up and putting hemp in here. So we try to rotate things as well. When things, you know, are done with one thing, we don't want to follow the same crops over and over again, because you get certain types of pests that inhabit the area, particularly things like the potato beetle, which burrows in the ground and it'll overwinter in the ground. In the springtime, it pops out. And if you have potatoes there where the potato beetle overwintered, it's not a good situation. So, you know, that's kind of the concept. You want to move your crop based on the family, based on the crop family. So yeah, there's that was that section of the farm. Any questions so far as I'm walking over to the next spot? Wonderful. I hope that's a good sign. All right, walking over to my barn, we have where we start our baby chicks. Our chicken, the way our chicken program works, and typically in a large poultry operation, you've got these large barns, which are much bigger than this barn that's behind me. And, you know, you've all seen them, you know what they're like. They're just huge structures, and they'll ship in chicks on a certain, you know, rotation, and they'll stay there their whole lives. And they'll give them their food, give them their water, and it's kind of a climate controlled environment with fans circulating air. But then when they're done with that, they've got to scrape out all of that, you know, material. And a lot of times they'll spread that on fields, which can be a good thing, but a lot of it at once leads to a lot of nutrient leaching into the water, into the creeks, into the rivers, and causes the algae blooms and the imbalance of nutrients in the river. So for us, this is the start of our poultry. Let me see if I can flip the camera. Yeah, this is the start of our poultry operation. So it's inside this barn, and we have these little baby chicks. These actually are bigger chicks. I'm gonna move inside of here. Good morning. So we have the evening.
Breaking up a little bit, Kyle.
Okay. It's probably because I was inside of my metal barn roof.
Yep, much better now.
Okay. So anyway, we get our chicks once every 3 weeks, and we do that so that we can, every other week. And we get 2 different kinds of chickens, one that we use for cut up parts and pieces like legs and wings and breast, and one that we use for whole chickens. the reason we do that is based on chef preference, and our whole chickens, they're a certain type of breed that the chefs like the body composition. So to make it simple, I do all my whole chickens that kind and all my cut up chickens the other kind. So they live in that situation that you just saw for 3 weeks. So by the time they arrive, which they're 2 days old to 3 weeks old, they live there. And then we move them out into our mobile shelters, which are 10 by 12 floorless boxes, essentially. And they've got chicken wire around it so the chickens can't get out, and the foxes and coyotes and raccoons and possums can't get in, and the hawks, they'd be a big problem. And we move those every day. So there's 120 square feet for about 50 to 60 chickens. And there's a lot of room in there for them to kind of scratch around and get what they need to on a daily basis. But this situation actually does a couple really important things. And one is that because we are containing and controlling where their manure is going, and we're moving them off of it on a daily basis, we're never getting an overload of manure, which in a lot of ways is a liability in certain contexts, but for us, it becomes an asset. So the manure that our chickens are dropping, they're putting it in one place, and we're continually, we can control where that manure is going to go. And so because of that, the sun gets to sanitize it, the rain gets to bring it down into our soil at just the right amount, which then fertilizes the next crop of grass and pasture, and then in turn gets to be enjoyed by the chickens a month and a half to 2 months later, and a different kind of chicken, our egg-laying chicken. So like I said, for us, the big key on manure is taking it from the liability category and moving it to the asset category. And so that's part of the situation with our meat chicken shelter. So this is a shelter behind me here. We're working on some of them because we don't have them full yet. But these are our birds over here. I'm gonna move this guy. So this is them inside of there, just chilling. See, they're finding a little sunlight, and they've got, plenty of things to scratch around and search for in there. They've got their food inside. They've got their water constantly flowing in there. And so we take this and, actually, I wonder if I could do like a little example here. Essentially what I do is, one hand is not as easy as things. So I've got this little dolly that I have, and when I'm ready to move it, I take the dolly, stick it under there. So now this thing's got wheels, and I come to the front, and I've got that out of the way, and I've got this handle. We just pull it like this and hope they get the picture. And they're kind of, moving at the same time.
It's adorable. Kyle, let me jump in with a question from the chat relative to this section.
Sure.
What do you have to do with the chickens before a pending hurricane?
Oh my gosh, what a question. So what we'll do is, with this situation, we usually put some anchors in the ground, some mobile home anchors, and we'll use straps to strap these things to the ground. It's really because we can't really put these chickens anywhere. We have to leave them in the field. So if there's a spot, like we know the wind's gonna be coming from a certain direction, we'll try to make it so that the wind's gonna flow through the openings versus kind of hit the roof at a certain angle and cause problems. So yeah, we just tie them down. Now, our next, excuse me, I'm out of breath. Our next poultry situation is out here, and it is what I'm walking up to right now. And it's called our egg mobile. And it's because these chickens live here out in the field, and they're attached to a mobile coop. And the mobile coop gives us eggs. That's why we call it an egg mobile. And so right here, I will take this down. And as you can see, hens are laying all their eggs this morning. And this also, because these egg mobiles have mesh for floors, they, like all the manure that get a drop, it stays here. It doesn't come with them, and we just move to the next spot. So it's really a unique and wonderful way to grow chickens instead of having to cycle out their, refuse, so to speak. We just move the chickens and let the manure do its work, because it's really a great fertilizer in the right quantities. So we do the same thing, and I'm going to walk towards our pigs. We'll do the same thing towards our pigs. And the idea with our pigs, we have about 30 hogs in an 8-acre area. So it's far from capacity. And we like to keep it like that because, there are certain areas that we consider sacrifice areas because of pigs. They're just stinking hard on everything. So where they eat and where they drink, we move that around a little bit, but mainly they don't spend a whole lot of time there. They eat and they drink and they go off and they go and find their little trees they like to lay under, or a little wallow hole. So instead of the modern traditional farming of having hogs in a barn and slatted floor, and their poop and pee runs down and they have to spray that on fields like everybody's familiar with, it becomes a thing where the pigs just get to live in the field and poop where they want to, and the poop disappears and the ground assimilates it because it is not met its capacity yet. So it's a wonderful thing having animals in a spot where they're not overloading their environmental conditions or their environmental capacity. So let's take a breather for a second. But
so Kyle, during your breather, do you want to respond to a question about what you feed the chickens?
Sure. Yeah, so we feed them a blended commercially available feed. I guess commercially available. It's more like a home scale commercially available feed. It's from Kalmbach Feeds, and it is a non-GMO, CERT Project verified grain blend. It's mainly corn, soy, and wheat and oats, I think, with a NutriBalancer, like a vitamin thing. And this is kind of one of the things that I like to talk about, because I have a lot of people who ask about organic eggs or grain-free or soy-free. And in an ideal world, there's lots, we can all live with our ideals. But at the end of the day, and so in an ideal world, we would come up with a substitute for soybeans and a substitute for everything, and be able to feed the most pure grains possible to our animals. But at the same time, and you know, on a home scale, if you can find that stuff and you want to feed it to your family, I'm all for it. I probably would. But at the same time, because I'm running a commercial business and I have to balance what people are willing to pay to our ideals, then, you know, I'm forced with the decision, well, where do I go? And so the non-GMO Project Verified was really where I landed, because, you know, one of the biggest things that I am against personally after I've learned about plant genetics and genetics in general is genetic modification. It's one of my big things that I'm very adamant against genetic modification, because I believe everything doesn't need modification. It's all good. And when there's an ethical standpoint too, you know, these companies that are doing these modifications then hold the patent to that specific DNA, which then can go wild, get out into the environment. And then now that company also holds the patent for genetics that unintentionally got into somebody else's hands. So that's just really sketchy in my opinion. The other thing is, you know, with non-GMO crops, the big thing that people genetically modify for is resistance to Roundup, so that they can spray their crops and their crops don't die, but the weeds do. And so genetically modified grains contribute to an enormous amount of Roundup being sprayed on our soils. And so we're removing that part. We're removing my ethical, you know, stance against genetic modification. So anyway, that's the long answer of why we feed the feed that we do, because it's affordable and meets the standards that I've got. And just real quick again, you know, right as we're talking, so this is my greenhouse, and my greenhouse is got a lot of things going on with it, but essentially this is the main area where we start all of our little plants. And so we've got things, we have a retail side where we're selling retail plants for folks for their gardens. These are the tomatoes that we grew this year for our retail customers, and they are looking really nice. Actually a little bit too nice. They're not supposed to be ready for another 3 weeks, but we'll figure it out. We'll spread them out a little bit. So we've got some peppers, we've got dill, cilantro, basil, and we have that available on our website. You can pre-order those. And so we have some other things that we're growing, like beets for ourselves. We have our romaine lettuces over here. We've got some peppers for us, some more tomatoes. And so this is kind of where we grow everything. We have a microgreen situation set up over here. This is the results of my last grafting attempt. So I had really good results grafting these early girls, but not so much with these pink tigers. If you can see, a lot of the grafts did not really do well, but some of them did okay. So, but yeah, I ran out of my clips that I usually use for grafting.
You define grafting, Kyle?
Yeah, so grafting is essentially when we have a tomato. Let's see, I'm going to go back over here and give an example. So grafting is when we have a certain rootstock of a tomato. If you can see right here, this is the graft union. So the roots of this tomato plant produce a really vigorous plant with lots of super big, healthy roots, but the fruit tastes like garbage. So, and then the top right here is a blush tomato, which is a beautiful little pear-shaped tomato. It's like a miniature, what do they call it? Plum tomato, or paste tomato. And so we're getting the best of both worlds. We're getting the beautiful, delicious tomato and the wonderful, vigorous, disease-resistant roots. We cut a slit, we spliced them together, and we were able to join the plants into one. And so then we plant those, and they produce a far superior product than if we had just planted the non-grafted tomato. pretty cool. I get to be a surgeon for a little while. And I just noticed that my phone is very close to dying. So I'm gonna go plug it in and we'll be sitting in my office for just a minute. So while we're doing that, and it's gonna switch over to if it does, and I get disconnected, I'll join right back in, but I don't think it will. Oh, I'm already on my Wi-Fi. Can everybody still hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. So over the years, I mentioned that I love going to the farmer's market, and that's true. I love going to the farmer's market, and I end up talking with a lot of people about vegetables and growing things and what it is that I'm doing, and they're telling me about their gardens and the things that they grow. And what ends up happening is people ask me a lot of questions, like these very specific, detailed questions, like my tomato leaves are turning purple on the underside. What's happening? Or, I've got these aphids on my basil, or these spittle bugs on these little things on my basil. What am I supposed to be doing right now? And I found that answering those questions, I was getting a lot of the same questions, but like a lot of the same types of questions, but answering those little specific questions to me was far less efficient than me trying to explain the organic system to someone. And so what I ended up doing, and I had taken, so I got this idea because I had taken, let me back up a second. So what I started to do was hold workshops at our farm. So vegetable growing workshops, beginner gardening classes, intermediate gardening classes. I had written this sort of curriculum that people come to the farm. We'd spend about 5 hours. It would be basically me talking nonstop and us doing some action items in the garden. I'd show people, how are we going to amend our soil? How are we going to water our soil and our plants? What do we need for soil nutrition? How do we space our plants out? How do we start seeds? Started all these different things. And what I realized is it's just not realistic for a 5-hour time frame to get it all covered. Plus, it was super exhausting. Talking nonstop for 5 hours is like 4 days worth of work in one 5-hour section. So I got this idea. I had taken a number of online courses myself, professional online courses for farming, and I saw the power in an online platform that somebody can walk through on their own at their own pace. And so I got this idea to take what I had put in these in-person workshops, consolidate it and expand it in certain areas, make it into a curriculum that I then would put into an online course and release to the public to take for whoever wanted to take it. And so I wrote the curriculum last spring. We filmed it and produced it last summer and fall. And so we've released our online course for people who want to grow vegetables or want to learn how to grow vegetables, either for the first time or better than they were in the past. And the way that the course is laid out is essentially the first section that you go through is the plan. So you have to establish what you want to grow in what quantities and when. And so we go through a whole module trying to figure that out. And we have a really great tool that does that. It's a Google sheet that goes through all these different sets of data. It shows you what to do and when to do it based on your first and last frost dates. So someone can use it here, or somebody can use it in Texas or Montana, it doesn't really matter. And at the end of that 6-step process, that's like a 45-minute lesson where we walk through that together. At the end of that 6-step process, you're left with a task calendar that's organized by date starting January 1 to December 31 of what exactly you have to do in your garden and when you have to do it and in what quantities based on your needs for what you want to grow. So once you've established your plan, which is your foundation, The next section is we go through the 4 pillars, and that is soil health and nutrition, seeds and plants, irrigation, and protection. And so I call those the 4 pillars because everything in the garden basically revolves around those 4 things. You have to make sure your soil is right. You have to make sure your plants and seeds are healthy and they're spaced out correctly. You have to make sure that you water your garden correctly and that you protect it from everything else that's trying to eat it, including your kids at some points. So it's a great, and then we have a couple sections on specific types of crops. So we have crop specific items like long season crops like a watermelon or a sweet corn or a cantaloupe, things that take a really long time and take up a lot of space. We have things that have really fine seeds. We kind of go through these different types of crops and little certain considerations based on those. And we have a couple bonus sections like how to build your own greenhouse and irrigate or fertilize with your water, and how to graft tomatoes. So that's essentially the course. And there's, it's available now. Like I think Dana put the link there. We're doing for our spring, we're doing the spring push, and it's half off right now. Coupon code for that is springtime 50. So it's just SPRINGTIME and then the number 50, and that'll get you 50% off of the course. So yeah, I hope some of y'all are interested and you end up signing up. But that's something that I'm really proud of and happy that we offer. And I will say it's taken a lot of time. So now I'm happy to get back to just farming. But yeah, I saw a question that came, something about the blueberry variety. Was that right? Would you have a question about that?
Yeah, Valerie asked if you had mentioned what type.
Yeah, so they're a legacy. So they're a northern high bush variety. And there are also some star but they're mainly legacy. And that's the one that so I think Costco sells legacy, but they actually will do well here, even though they're northern high bush. We have pretty adaptable area for growing blueberries. But yeah, as far as, I wanted to say one more thing about the growing vegetables. One of the reasons, and this is kind of going back to when I'm talking about, water quality, we have a lot of people in the backyard who are trying to grow vegetables, especially these days. It's on a per household basis, what they do in their yard is pretty insignificant as far as if people put too much fertilizer down or they water too much, and things are getting, or they're using a really highly soluble synthetic fertilizer that just flows straight down into the soil and into the creeks. On a per household basis, it's not a big deal. But when you're talking about on a in a per region basis, it ends up adding up. So one of the reasons, another one of the reasons that I'm thankful to have something like that, I want to try to educate people on how to do it properly so that we're not overloading kind of what we've got. It's a big problem in the landscape industry too. I know y'all probably aware of that, the amount of stuff that's dumped on people's yards and then watered into the storm drains. But anyway, I saw a couple questions. Oh, I can see the questions now. All right, let's see here. Organic gardening soil in larger quantities in bag. Yeah. So Cynthia asked, direct any place in Wilmington or Leland area for purchasing organic, reasonably clean gardening soil for larger quantities than bagged. So there's a guy that used to work for me. His name's Riley Albert, and he owns the Wilmington Compost Company. And they offer a product that is essentially, it's a mixture of topsoil and decayed organic debris. So like tree limbs, wood chips, it's been decaying for years and years and years. And so he mixes that with topsoil and he sells that as a blend. It's available in Rocky Point, but he also delivers it. And you can get it in a trailer load. You just go out there. It's not too far away, especially if you're in Leland. You can hop on the bypass and get up to Rocky Point. You just look up Wilmington Compost Company, or I think it's also called, and I'm gonna type this. It's called on an old map. It would be called the landfill at Running Deer. And you can find that. Yeah, you know Riley. Perfect. There it is. So Andrew asked, is there a reason for all the chicken shelters facing the same way? And yes, the reason is because, so in the full swing of the season, when we have, you know, all of the chickens run, all the chicken shelters full, because right now we're starting our chicken program and we'll continue it all the way until the 1st of November. So we'll be getting chickens every 2 weeks until the 1st of November. And so they all fill up. They're all full at any given time. And we're moving them in the same direction so that we can kind of like a fleet of ships would move. We would kind of move them all at once, and they would move in kind of a single organism around the pasture to kind of complete their cycle instead of, you know, having to move them one by one in different directions. Does that make sense as far as that is concerned? Cool.
I'm going to let you know, sorry, Kyle, to interrupt. So we're in Q&A now. So, you know, if you don't want to type, feel free to unmute yourself and speak your question to Kyle. Might be a little easier so he doesn't have to read. It looks like there's one more in the chat though, Kyle.
Yeah, there's only one. So yeah, Valerie just asked how long the Springtime 50 discount will be honored. At least until the end of March, possibly into April, but I haven't quite decided yet. If it's not a Springtime 50, it'll be a Springtime 40 come April 1st. But we will keep honoring a discount just to try to push this as much as we can.
All right, other questions for Kyle?
I have one question. And good morning. Right. I don't have my face. But can you tell us? Can you hear me?
I can now. Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell us? You know, getting started out and all with farming. Can you tell us what one of your least favorite years has been like as a farmer in terms of hardship or crops not doing so well, and what one of the best years has been like?
Yeah, that's a pretty fascinating question. So, yeah, so people have asked me like, what are my favorite things to grow and least favorite things to grow, but this is a whole different, I've got to back up a bit. So yeah, when I was first, kind of the early days when I was still trying to figure out the perfect mix of crops and animals to grow, I made a lot of investments, I think financial investments into the farm that ended up kind of loading on some debts that I still kind of carry, and I don't, it's obviously not preferable. But walking through the years of making mistakes is necessary for sure in any person's life or business, but it is hard. So, you know, learning about certain weed pressures that I had no idea where they, you know, I would, you know, make a new spot available for growing things and till up the land so that I'm about to, you know, make it nice and friable so I can plant some things there. And then discovering, oh my gosh, there's a huge nut sedge problem here. I can't grow here anymore. What am I doing? So like that would be an example. And these kind of all stacked up and happened around the same time, which probably would have been around 2016 or 17. But they taught me a lot. They taught me a lot of things that I wasn't going to do. And it ruled out a lot of, possibilities for things. One of those things is growing cows. I used to grow beef cows, and, accepting the fact that my land is not really well suitable for beef cows, and my brain is not really well suitable for beef cows, was a hard lesson to learn, but it was necessary because it allowed me to just shut that door and focus on the things that I was good at. So yeah, because you want to be good at everything. You want to do everything. You want to be all things to all people, and you just can't. So that was a hard thing for me, but I'm glad that I went through it. So that would be kind of a bad year. Things not working out like I thought they were going to. Putting investment into things and realizing, man, this is not working out. So, but a good year, and this is kind of this is an interesting aspect of local food, but this past spring with COVID, we saw a huge increase in demand, and we were just going with business as usual because we had no idea COVID would become what it did become. And as soon as things started locking down and there was this sort of panic mode that went on, we saw like a 400% increase in people trying to buy food on our online store because we had already set it up. And so we were selling basically everything that we could grow, which was a really wonderful feeling. We also knew that it wouldn't last forever. But that was a taste for like, man, to be able to sell everything you're growing is like a farmer's dream, especially a farmer like me who's growing a lot of different kinds of things. And so it was really wonderful as far as our business is concerned. Now, with any huge spike up, there's always a crash of some sort, or a taper. So we've been kind of experiencing the taper ever since. And now, especially, we don't really have that many things to offer. Like, we haven't really started harvesting any vegetables. We're mainly doing microgreens. We're out of all of our chicken, out of all of our pork. We have a little bit of beef. But so we're kind of feeling it right now, but come the next couple months, things will change drastically and we'll be on that uptrend again. But that's kind of part of the farming life too. That's part of the reason that I got into doing meats and vegetables, is the idea of when the vegetables are in a slump, you have the meats to support you, and vice versa. When the meats are really expensive because you got to buy feed all the time, you've got the vegetables to fund the meat operations. So, but right now we're just out of both. So it's kind of an interesting situation. And part of it is because we had so much demand, and we were never really able to keep up. So yeah.
I just have to thank
Long answer to a question, but thank you for the question.
Yes. I just have to thank you for that course that you have, because that's your own level of activism. That's your own way of advocating for organic farming, which helps to keep our water. So thank you for, even though it was insignificant, it's a method of advocacy, I think. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm glad to have it. It's kind of like my life so far work. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I haven't lived that much of a life. I mean, I've lived a life, but not. Anyway, moving on.
How do you handle soil testing?
Good, great question. So I've got a report right here. So we test our soils ideally every year. I have not gotten, I don't really, I think you can go a little bit overboard with soil testing because it takes a long time for soil microbes to really regulate the things that you've put in the soil. So, we do it in the, right after the summer, before the fall, when the microbes are most active in the soil. So we're getting the most amount of, like, the best reading basically of what we have in our soils. And we take our samples. I did about 7 samples this year, and I sent them off to a place called Kinsey Agricultural Services. They're actually a consulting firm, and they have a partnership with a lab. And the lab itself tests the soil. The lab tests the soil. The consulting service interprets it, and then they give me a sheet that is organic. You say I want organic recommendations, and they can give you a recommendation based on pounds per 1,000 square foot. So yeah, that's Kinsey Agricultural Service, in case anybody was wondering. And I do go over that specifically in my course as well.
Questions on Facebook now, just providing information about the discount and all that stuff. Is there any other questions here in the Zoom? Feel free to unmute yourselves. There's a little bit of an echo, I think, probably because Kyle's on his phone, maybe. So just kind of speak slowly.
Sorry about that.
I have a question and a request. This is Valerie. The question is, do you welcome contributions of clean used egg cartons?
Yes, if they are, we use pulp egg cartons. So the ones that are, made from paper pulp. I don't accept styrofoam or plastic, just because I do want people to know that I do reuse egg cartons, but you got to buy the pulp stuff. Because they'll eventually break down and the other ones won't. So I encourage people to buy eggs if they're going to buy them not from me, buy them from the grocery store, but make sure they're the pulp carton kind. So yes, the answer is yes, I do.
Good. And the request, I'll go online and learn more about your course. I was aware of it, but I know more about it now than I did. And I might take it myself, but I would like to put a mention of it in the upcoming issue of Cape Fear's Going Green. So what would be the best way to chat with you in the future to learn more about it? Email? Phone?
We can just schedule some kind of a call. We can just talk on the phone.
Okay,
fine.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you. That'd be wonderful. And so the last thing that I'll say, we don't have to be done for sure. If there's other questions, I'm happy to answer. But I do just want to mention, as Paige mentioned before, she shops with me. Essentially what we have now is a system, and we've had it for quite some time, but it's an online shopping experience. So I update my inventory, everything that I've got available in real time. I update that twice a week. And I send out an email basically saying it's time to order. I'll do that on Mondays and Thursdays. And then you have, if you get that email, you can click on the button that says order now, and you've got until the following day at 1:30 p.m. to place your order. So if I send the email out on Monday, you've got until Tuesday at 1:30 to actually place the order. And then and then you can pick it up on Wednesday at any time. So it's in our freezers or our refrigerators. It's got your name on it. It's already been paid for via the online system. And you just come pick it up whenever. And you can even pick it up on Thursday or Friday. If I send it out on Thursday, so the Thursday ordering cycle, I send it out on Thursday morning. You have until Friday at 1:30 to place your order, and you come pick it up on Saturday or Sunday or whenever. Yep, there you go. Dana just put the link there, and that's the instructions. So the instructions, yeah, good. Just reading this stuff. So yeah, that site that Dana just put on there, that is the instructions. Will basically explain what I just said, and then in there's a button that is to our third-party site, which is from a company called Barn to Door, and it's a really great thing that we've got going on there. So we do that. We also go to the farmers market every week, the Wilmington Farmers Market, which meets outside of Tidal Creek. That's from 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock, and we sell our stuff there as well. I am not always there personally, but one of my 2 employees will be there, or I'm there sometimes. I usually go once every 3 weeks. And we also carry things in our store that we don't sell at the farmer's market. Like we have some honey that I didn't personally tend and keep the bees, but they're kept on our farm by another person. We also carry some local rice that I just sold out of. We carry some grass-fed beef from a neighbor. But since I don't grow these things personally, I can't take them to the farmer's market, which I think is a good thing. But just so everybody knows, there's more available on the website than there is at the farmer's market. And if you order on the website, you're sure to get what you've ordered, with like a few exceptions. Like if I run out of something, or if I miss, I overjudged how much inventory I had. But for the most part, everybody gets what they ordered.
Super fun. Also, Tidal Creek does have some of your products available outside of the farmer's market.
Yep,
inside the store.
Specifically eggs, yeah.
Specifically eggs, yeah.
Yep.
So that is good. Thank you very much, Kyle. This was super, super engaging. I wish we could have seen the pigs just to have a little cuteness factor, but I'll look forward to checking them out when I come visit you. And is there any other questions before we give Kyle his time back to take care of all the amazing things he's got going on there? Okay. Well, I want to thank you. Obviously, we at Cape Fear River Watch are huge supporters of these practices of farming. And we hope that, we can help encourage folks to support you and other farmers like you who are really doing, real farming. And it's vitally important that the community jumps behind this, because obviously we all know consumers rule the market. The more the folks buy this stuff, the easier it is for these guys to produce it and make some money off of it. So I really appreciate you and all that you do. And thank you so much. And we have this recording. Once it gets all finalized, we will pop it up on our YouTube. It's available now on Facebook as soon as we end this, so people can share it there. And then in our Wednesday email, we'll put all the links, all this information to sign up for the course, and the stuff about compost. We'll pop all that into our Wednesday email. So be sure that you are signed up to get our emails. It's really the best way to keep up to date with what's going on with Riverwatch. Well, thank you so much, Kyle. And thanks everybody for joining, and have a great weekend.
All right. Yeah, thanks so much, everybody, for joining, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you. See ya.
Thank you.